Welcome back to Get Over Your Shit, the podcast dedicated to helping digital course creators, entrepreneurs, and small business owners stop overthinking and start executing. I'm Melinda Watt, your host and fellow overthinker, here to guide you through the maze of self-doubt and procrastination that keep us stuck. Today, I'm joined by Kate Danger, a skilled marketing professional, devoted mom of four, and adventurous expat who has built a life filled with creativity and purpose just outside the historic city of Versailles, France. Kate's story is a beautiful example of how following your passions and embracing life's twists can lead to incredible opportunities. In this episode, Kate takes us through her journey from starting as an au pair to channeling her creativity into building a unique website that helps English-speaking visitors uncover the hidden gems of Versailles. We explore the power of starting before you feel completely ready, overcoming perfectionism, and how breaking things down into manageable steps can make even the most daunting tech projects approachable. If you've been hesitating to bring your own creative vision to life, this conversation will inspire you to trust your instincts, embrace the process, and discover the joy in creating something meaningful. So, Katie, I'm so excited to have you here as my second guest on the podcast. So, thank you so much. I love it. So, I'm curious what brought you to live in France and, how this all came to be, because you are an American with, I think you said it was an Irish passport. Is that what I
Mhm.
read on the website? Now living in France. So, how did that come to be?
Well, it's true. I was raised in the U.S. By an Irish father and an American mother, so I was lucky enough to have the two passports, and I didn't really think anything of it or think that I was different in any way, except for when it came time. There was a crisis in New York, and I had been working in the banks and decided I should go to Europe. And then when it came time to look at visas and all that stuff, I realized that there was an advantage that I could just use my Irish passport and stay a little bit longer. So I came across as an au pair because I was like, I want to learn another language. I was just going to stay for a little bit, learn another language, then pop on home. And that's kind of not how my adventure went. But the Irish passport definitely opened some doors for me. But though I have to say that the au pair program abroad is really interesting. You can get a visa for up to 2 years working and living with a family, and I thought that was ideal because I didn't have to worry about lodging. I actually really like kids, and I like kind of family life, so that was good for me. And I could learn the language from the kids and from just like being boots on the ground here. So
Yeah.
that was kind of, I just thought, on my bucket list was to learn another language. I didn't realize like everything that that would entail and that actually would change my life.
That's fantastic. I mean, it just goes to show how, trusting that initial instinct for an adventure and where, what path that led you on. So you are now settled in Versailles, France, and you have three kids,
Four
right?
kids.
Four? Oh my
Four.
goodness. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, they range in age from 11 to a year and a half. So I have three girls that are a little bit older, and then the baby came along. But yeah, it's nice. We have a house. We live just outside Versailles, which is just outside of Paris. So we're like suburban life. And I think living in France helped me have so many kids just because it's very family friendly, also friendly to working mothers. So the culture kind of really lent itself to an ease of life with littles.
Yeah. What led you down the path of deciding that you need to put this out onto the internet with your own website, to share your experience? How did you come to that decision that a website was, what needed to happen?
I've been playing around with the idea. I think I came across your website a while ago just when I was thinking of the idea. I've always had a 9 to 5 job in marketing. And some of those jobs have been very, for I guess, bigger companies that are very slow moving. And I wanted a place, just a sandbox where I could explore and try out things that I've been learning, but not able to kind of feeling dead ended at my job that, they didn't want to move or adopt new things very quickly. So I just thought that this was a place that I could express myself creatively. And that's kind of what it's been and how it started and kind of where it's going at this point. and it's fun because I feel like I'm learning and creating, and I found my little niche on the webs on the world wide web. For a long time I played with the idea, but I didn't really know or wasn't confident about what my value add would be or what my niche would be until one day I realized just that my what my life had become. And writing this website. You asked me once before, like who I created this for, or and I have a whole family in America that hasn't traveled as much as I would like them to. I'd love them to come visit. And I realized, like, coming to a place where you don't know the language and you don't know anything, it's hard. It's
It's
hard
super
to know
intimidating. I have
where to
never been to
go.
France, and that idea of,
Exactly.
how comfortable will I be? Will I be able to get where I need to go? And, that experience. So I think that you're right, that it keeps people, it keeps them limited. And, as the podcast, get over your shit and just go and have the adventure. Right. And so I think
Exactly.
English speaking with that guidance, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, or else people that come on big tour buses and they do a wham bam thank you ma'am, and they miss really looking and just lingering and knowing where to look. So I felt like I had that, and I was kind of giving it one off to friends and people who would come. People would always say, "Hey, I have a friend in France, call her." And I'd go meet them for drinks and just tell them stuff, and they'd be like so amazed at like how life is. And for me, I seem to take it for granted instead of taking advantage of it. So I that kind of changed my mindset of, hey, this is really a value add and something I really love doing. We own an Airbnb here too, and I'm always welcoming guests and just I'm loving explaining to them, hey, don't forget to go here, check this out. So a website just kind of seemed I could put it there and not have to repeat myself all the time. But also just kind of hospitality, I think, is in my genes. So it just kind of happened naturally.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that you're right. It's not having to necessarily repeat yourself, but the idea of just, again, bringing in someone who is English speaking and feeling intimidated, because I would imagine that, of course, the draw is the palace, but to not just, like you said, hop on the bus, come see it, and then head back to Paris or something, right? So, what are some of those couple of places that you feel that people are really missing on, if they get on that bus too soon and don't stay a little longer?
Well, I want to say that Paris is the most visited tourist destination in the world. So there's tons of millions of people flocking to Paris every year, even before the Olympics last year. It's just people come, people travel. And the Versailles alone, the castle has 8 million visitors a year. So there is a lot of traffic. I don't always feel it living here, but it is like more and more because I think it's worth seeing. The palace when it was built, if it was appraised today, it would be I think like 8 billion. I might be wrong on that, but it's very
Wow.
expensive, and the government doesn't upkeep it as much. So you're asking about like hidden corners and things to see. There's a whole second floor that they haven't touched that I'm fascinated by. I haven't yet been to see it, but I've just as I've researched and kind of unpacked this stuff, the second floor, they haven't touched it. The only way it's lit is by candlelight or by like opening the windows, opening these heavy curtains. So nothing is faded. Everything is just in a time capsule, hasn't changed at all. And I'm just fascinated by this. I would love to get in and see it, and I should do it soon. But you have to get a special tour there. You have to use a special guide, things like that. But even the fact it's a little bit like the Sistine Chapel in Italy. The arches on the ceiling, it's actually a square room, but the arches are painted on in some places. They call it a trompe d'oeil in French, like a something that catches your eye or something that's kind of something that you think is real, but it's fake because it's just painted on. But they've done it so well in special parts that you're just like, wow, this is really cool. And it is just glamorous and big and awe-inspiring. I feel like when I stand in it, I'm like when I stand in the Hall of Mirrors, which is one of the most famous rooms there. It's where the Treaty of Versailles was signed, which ended World War II. It's just you see like can't help but feel like a little bit sentimental on these spots. I'm just like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah. To be standing right there in history and just the grandeur of the palace itself. I mean, but yes, the history all around you. And there was someone's YouTube video I was watching recently. I think it was Keep Your Daydream. And that was sort of Trisha's one spot that she was heading for. And she sort of made a beeline for that room so that she could have that space kind of all to herself before
Yeah.
was sort of overcome with other tourists in the
I
palace
think
that day.
if you need to go, you need to go early and be one of the first in the rooms before it starts to get really busy. But it's totally possible to be one of the first in the room. And I took a picture in there with a friend right after COVID when it was still the museums were just starting to open up, so it was empty, and it was just so wonderful to be in that space. But there's things outside of the castle that are really interesting to see too. In the
Mhm.
summers, there's just tons of picnickers that picnic in the gardens. Just I imagine that's how they used to do in the olden days too. Just sit out with your picnic and enjoy like French life go by. A lot of coffee shops and stuff that I think people when they come in and go out, they just kind of miss the like French life. And it's a French life. We're so close to Paris, but there's kind of just a side that you'll miss if you just kind of hurry in and out, just of enjoying a coffee. And of course, like France is huge for people watching, just watching and just kind of living a slower life.
I love that you use the word, French society on your website, right? And I think that that really is, what people are starting to understand how different the culture is. So is it really that people want to slow down and take their time that, you know, on this side of the world, I'm in Canada, but in the US as well, that things are just so sped up. We're not really taking the time to slow down and appreciate what it is that's around us, and particularly being in France, the beauty and the history
Hmm.
that is around.
I think just the French society, they never sped up. And in some ways, you can see that in the bureaucracy. It's just really slow. Paperwork here is very long. So, the side of living here, it's frustrating. But there is a side that we do slow down. Like every 6 weeks, the kids have 2 weeks vacation. So,
Oh
it's
my.
a lot
Wow.
of vacation that's built into our lifestyle. I think we cook a lot as in families here. Family meals are very, very important. We just don't eat and run. Meal times kind of in France are set at certain times, and you can't really pop in to get something like you can't eat whenever. Just little things like that are kind of French society rules that they have. You just kind of feel, or it's just not as convenient. In America and in Canada, everything's convenient. You can go to the store any hour. You can do pretty much anything you want all the time. Where France, you just, your kids are out of school, so you have to slow down. Or you have to, things like it's a slow life, but yeah, I don't know if it's done like intentionally. It's just a different culture. It's just a different place. Yeah.
It's so true. I did not know that. 6 weeks and then 2 weeks off. That's wild,
That's why you
and
got to
with
keep your in laws close.
for sure.
You need help. You
Oh my
need
goodness. I can't, I mean, I homeschool my son who's 11, but yeah, because we like that slower pace of life, of family life, right? And that's not really the norm in this, in Canada and in the US specifically. But that is fantastic that you do sort of have to shape your life around that. So
Yeah, so we plan vacations in advance and rely on camps and like the kids go to pony camps and ski camps and we do spend a lot of time with in-laws and things like that just to make our lives run but it works.
yeah.
It works. But family is really it's important here. So that's kind of the nucleus and very I've found it's
And that, I mean, having my own limited, understanding, I did go through French immersion. Unfortunately, I've lost my French, the early years of elementary school. But I guess my first interpretation wouldn't necessarily be like when I think of Paris, France, I think of, fashion and, like I'm probably going to look silly when I go because I might not dress right. Like that's sort of my own limiting beliefs around it. But it's so wonderful to hear how much family is actually prioritize as as the culture itself, right? That family takes sort of center stage that way, so that's really quite beautiful.
yeah. France is just the capital of Paris is the capital of France in so many ways. It's the seat of government. It's finance capital. It's the technology capital. It's the fashion capital. And in America, you have like New York is the fashion capital and finance, and governments in Washington D.C. And then tech is on the West Coast. We have everything in one place. So it's
Mm,
just that's interesting. And Paris is really a city that moves. It's a lot smaller than New York, but it has, for me, same energy. Kind of, it has, except for it's not open all the time. We close on Sundays and stores are closed around, I don't know, 8 p.m. I think you can find kind of that lifestyle that moves, but I think if you go into the suburbs, if you kind of get a sense of the essence of real French life, I find it's more in for me, it's more in Versailles. In Paris is very you'll hear a lot of English. Everybody is I feel like everybody's speaking English now. But in Versailles, you're likely to hear a little bit more French, but people will they'll speak to you in English as soon as you start talking. You just give them a nice bonjour and that's, you're making an effort and they'll talk. But as far as what to wear, like people are, tennis shoes, everybody's wearing tennis shoes. It's all about the tennis shoes you have and I feel like the old days of, wearing heels and being so uncomfortable is it's gone.
Okay, so we won't spend a lot of time on this, but Emily in Paris. I mean, has that show done any good for the for Paris,
I
or
I
is it?
yeah, I love that show. I think I take it I get a good laugh out of it because it's like Sex and the
Yeah.
City, but like for French. But I think it does. But there's a real thing when people come here called Paris syndrome. It's on Wikipedia. You should look it up.
Oh,
But
cool.
it's the shock of like figuring out the city is not at all like how it's portrayed in films and things. That people have this hope that they're gonna fall in love and be wonderful. Well, Frenchmen, in my experience, aren't that romantic. They're definitely not as romantic as in the films, and but there's a syndrome called Paris syndrome, and it's a realization of, like, I guess it's a big disappointment. I mean, there's places that are beautiful, and there's things that are really beautiful and well done, but I think there is a level of frustration, and that's what I've felt living here with the bureaucracy with things. There's definitely a dark side. I like to compare, like, Paris to a beautiful woman. Like, she's just high maintenance and hard to live with, but you're with a beautiful woman, it's worth to look at. It's
Worth
to
it. Yeah.
to to have that, it's like, "Oh, I earned that," but at what cost?
Oh, that's a fantastic analogy. So I'm curious too, as you went into building your website and getting this online, sort of what challenges or surprises did you face as you kind of started to work through that process? Because it is, I mean, to my own this small embarrassment, you joined my email list in 2020. We're on the cusp of 2025.
Yeah,
And I'm so happy that we have connected. But I think that it speaks to the idea also that, as we start a small business, it's sort of, getting into the flow and email and whatnot, and that continuing to email is so important. And that email list that you joined was about DIYing your own website, and I left you short because I didn't put out something for you to DIY your website for several years later.
yeah.
So I know you've had some support in building your website, but I'm curious, sort of, as you've spent this time, because it obviously has been on your mind almost 5 years, that now this website has come to fruition, is live,
Yeah.
which I'm so excited for you. But what are some of the challenges and surprises that you kind of hit on in that time of getting to this place that now you have your website live?
Oh, it's a good question, and, I don't blame you at all. I'm super happy we've connected because you have given me so much value and feedback, and now that I've started the ball rolling, I think once something's in momentum, it's easier to direct, and it's like when you're skiing, when you're going, it's easier to kind of correct and fix things as you go. So I'm just learning by doing it. That's kind of where
Mhm.
I'm at. So I just was like, I need to get started. And the things that block me, I'm just going to like get them done, ask people for help, pay for what I need to get just because I want to get this thing rolling. And a lot of kind of how I'm letting it develop is just by the content. So I didn't really know how to approach a designer and to how to say like because I hadn't created all the content. I had been saving photos and taking photos and just kind of having ideas for those 5 years and journaling things down and kind of getting sketches of what I think would be a value add to, I guess, my audience, or would have been helpful to me a few years ago. So I just started kind of getting the bones together, and then as they start to flesh in a little bit more, kind of defining my categories and things like that. I'm pretty comfortable now in WordPress. The design side is another thing, and maybe in as I see where it's going to go, then I can redo that. But I just wanted something going, so I guess that was the big hurdle to get over. But like my joy right now is kind of like putting in like putting like writing the blog articles and kind of and getting the links in and okay, is this SEO, is this going to be right? And you've given me great feedback on that, and to know like who's coming to see and how that's all coming together, and I love that. But I just feel like now that it's in momentum, it's pulling in energy, and it's going to a place that I like, and knowing kind of what people are looking at and kind of how to adjust. I wanted to be in control of my website because that's what I wanted to see and quickly be able to pivot. Um, I just wanted to get started because maybe in 5 years from now, I'll be like, oh, that was a tourism site, but either I need a spin off or I need the next project will be this. And I'm one of those multi passionate kind of crazy people with tons of ideas. And this one had haunted me and bugged me and come and just been. And I'm like, I need to just birth this. I need to get it out. And then we'll see what it becomes. And then I'll do project B. Then I'll do, but it's definitely in momentum now, and I love where it's going. I love that I have support in you, that I can reach out, that you've been very generous with your feedback and things that and I still need to add a mailing list to it. I know I still like have things to go, but there's so much room to grow, and it's such an exciting place to be that I'm really happy to be here, and I feel supported, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's sort of one of the things that we can get sort of hung up on is this, perfectionism and, having everything just right and just perfect when ultimately, you can have it just right and just perfect and, take down that coming soon page, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that they will come just because it's live, right? There's still all kinds of work. So
Exactly.
getting it in up and online and still, uh, there's always going to be work to be done. I am curious. I know that you are in WordPress, but did you play with other sort of platforms before you finally decided on WordPress?
I did. I actually
Oh, good.
spent some time in Squarespace because I was like, it's so pretty. I like it. But I don't know. I just felt like for SEO, WordPress was kind of the place to be. That's kind of why I decided. And the learning curve was just, I mean, with learning curve with anything, you just look at it, you're like, whoa, where do I start? Where do I go? But yeah, I just thought like WordPress might be, I don't know if you feel the same, might be more sustainable long term. Um, for me.
Well, I mean, I'm always going to say WordPress. Mostly because it does account for so many of the websites, content management systems that are out there. And so ultimately, if you are looking for support, you're going to have a far easier time finding that than
Yeah.
if you use something like Squarespace that only has I think as far as content management system goes, I think it might be 2 to 3% of the market,
Mhm.
where content management systems, WordPress is like 65% of the market. So it really, as much as it is a hurdle to get over, I love seeing Facebook group questions about like, what platform are you using? And I'm like, if you're asking, you just need to spend time on WordPress.
Yeah.
You just need
Another thing
to
is I
pick
didn't wanna
one.
have to relearn something later, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna start with what I know works, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
it's been proven and it works, so I'm gonna." I also like the billing structure, it seemed a lot more clear where, like, WordPress, it's like you never really own the site, you kind of always have to.
And Squarespace,
Yeah,
you can't really pick it up, package it up, and put it in a box and take it somewhere else.
exactly.
That's
'Cause you're
big
always
pieces.
yeah. So I just was
Yeah.
like, "No," and I'm glad, I mean, so far it's been good to me, I don't have any problems or any, I mean, and you can, I'm using Elementor right now too, but you can, I know that that can change, and I can, there's a lot of ways that can grow, but right now like I'm at a level that I feel comfortable at, and I know it's going to grow, and now I can like think about other things. Like a website could be, it could be a huge business, it could be, there's so many parts of it that, like the SEO, the photos, like the photography, the content, the hosting, the design, it's just, it's huge. So yeah, I'm just gonna, I start out and I chisel out, kind of follow my interest. Okay, this is working. Okay, now this. And so it's going slow. I mean, it's gone slow, but I think it's up live, and definitely there's a new momentum that's going along with it now, and I'm happy. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I think even, in terms of just like I said, just getting it out there, getting it online and starting to move through that process. So I'm curious if you do have advice for someone who is kind of picking away, saving too many photos in a folder and just, not really getting going. What advice do you have to them to sort of start to bring things to
It's a good question.
take that leap?
I would just start kind of start with, I think what really helped me was I just started a document on like what I think, and it wasn't even finished by the time I came to like a designer with it, but I was like, these are kind of the general categories I want, and this is kind of how I want it to look. And then when I gave it to him and he started to work through it, that kind of like lit the fire on me, like, okay, now I got to get content done. Now I got to work on this. And then I went back to him with some changes as I was feeling them. But I think just start with a document. Don't even start on WordPress. Start with a document of how you like a vision board or something like that, like a vision board or on all the text. And then like once something is written down, it's way easier to go to somebody and say, this is kind of what I'm thinking of. And then like if it's a match, I'd talk to several people, but if it's a match, then they'll kind of know where to go next with that. Or know, hey, I have these category ideas or I have this. And then it's a conversation and just to start the conversation. But for me, it was really kind of I had been storing stuff and until I kind of sat down and I was like, this is how I want it to be and this is how it should look. And it wasn't perfect for sure. It was just a mess and a jumble of ideas. I don't even think my about me is still finished the way I want it to be, but that's just kind of what I wrote in there. And now we have tools like AI, we have things that can really help polish it up. But as long as the framework is there, I think it just that gets it going. For me, that was the way. And then the technical skills, they came together, they're coming together. And then I was always reaching out to you or Sam for advice, like, hey, this isn't looking the way I want it to, or feedback. Then the polishing and refinements is stuff that I love. And I think I got the horse before the carriage there. And I was working on the refinements without actually having like this the main part to refine. So I'm happy that it's not perfect. I'm happy that it's a work in progress because I think it can only get better.
Yeah. Well, and it needs to that's the big thing, like I said, we think we build it and they will come, but ultimately, that content, it has to be well optimized. And it needs to sit there for 3, 4, 6 months for Google to know what to do with it, right? And that's where that traffic will start to generate from. I love what you said about, just starting with a Google document because I just finally created, and it's going to go up in the next week, a planner. So I created a planner of exactly what you're saying that is a Google document that you can write
I'm
in
just blown
and actually
away.
laying all of that out. So I'm sorry it's so late, but for anyone else who's planning a website, I think it'll be a big help because we get stuck in that idea of like, what is everything supposed to look like? And then if we are taking on the tech, we get completely overwhelmed with, okay, now I need to actually have content to put in that page.
Right.
Versus if we have the content already laid out in a nice planner, a nice Google document that had it all there. And then as we're taking on the tech of the website, we'll be able to make that leap.
Yeah, I thought I needed to get all the tech like all straightened out and be able to like really know the tech to be able to play with it to get it to, and I feel like I've learned that in reverse by creating the content and by putting the content into those pages. It's taught me the tech that I can do, and that I can edit other pages and that I can, hey, I don't like the way this sits. Can we move that? Um, and just kind of, the designer I worked with, he kind of worked me through some of that. He's like, no, let's do, or I would just show him new content and let him do it. I'd be like, hey, no, this, I want it to. So, yeah, just having kind of a place to start with, I think that is the most helpful. And the things you learn them kind of as you need to, and you learn in motion. So you learn by like messing up and doing like that. My website's full of a million mistakes. Some of them you don't see, but like they helped me to learn, I'm not a designer level yet, and I don't think I want to be, but I'm doing the part that I'm good at and it's coming along. So I feel like I've already gotten I remember like I got my first hits like just naturally from Google and I've, like at the beginning, I don't remember if at the beginning like at Google Console you get like award for like how many views in how many days and how many views, and I think I'm up to like 7 7 levels now, and it's just like so every morning I wake up, I'm like, "Okay, where am I at now?"
It's the same thing with having started this podcast. I mean, this is a new experience for me. And to see when I hit like 50 downloads, I was like, oh my goodness, 50 downloads. And then also seeing the data around where those downloads came from. And Norway was one place, and I'm like, I don't think I know anybody in Norway that actually knows me. So it's a matter of putting it out there one step at a time. So
Super.
I'm so excited for you and super proud that you launched and that everything's coming together. So, and that leads me to my last question for you is like, what's next for you and your website? It's interesting when we had our conversation, I guess that was almost a couple months ago, of I always approach a website from the idea of, making money. And I kind of pushed you on that a little bit of like, well, what's the next step for this? So
Mm.
honestly, it was quite refreshing to just know that it was also a website. Yes, it can make money at some point, but right now what's feeding your desire to have this website is just the passion of sharing that information. So
Yeah, and also like it was just a sandbox of places to explore because I'm always watching podcasts and learning stuff and I'm like I couldn't apply it to my job. Like I couldn't I tried. I'm like, "Hey
mm,
guys, let's try this. Let's do this." And with marketing things and they were constantly like, "No, no, we do it this way and we use this." And it wasn't I was so frustrated that I just needed a sandbox to be like, "Okay, these things that people are teaching, do they work? Do they work? Like if I bought this course, does it work?" And I had no place
yeah.
to kind of try it out. So that was a thing. A couple months ago, I joined this challenge online to be an Amazon affiliate, and I did that. And all summer long, I took 3 months and I made tons of videos, and I've made like nice money off that. So
Cool.
yeah, so I was like, if I can make money off that, like I could also make money having my own website. And if I'm getting that much traffic just on Amazon, things I don't care about, what can I do with something I actually care about? And can I monetize it? There is monetization behind it. I don't know if I'm ready to quit my day job and like go all in, though I would love to, like if it went amazingly viral and really cool. But there is just an element of care and personal growth in there that I care about.
Yeah.
I'm open to making money off of it and what can happen. I guess the next step would be once I feel like the traffic's going up, is to and I have kind of we've talked before about different ideas. I do have a scavenger hunt that I want to put up on there, just kind of a
Oh, I
giveaway
love that idea. Oh my goodness, that's great.
for kids and for grown-ups. And then like a city guide that would be kind of a paid guide. Traffic, let's see, like if some of those 8 million people are going to come through my website. So there is some monetization on Journey, kind of getting started there. But those are definitely kind of next steps, but I'm pretty happy with the way the website looks and kind of the content that's coming. Also, like busy filling out my content calendar, my editorial calendar to see kind of what goes. But I am really into the data right now. I'm totally geeking it out to see what are people clicking. I actually had and it's not always what I think my best article was. Like I love an article I wrote on picnics in Versailles, like what to get, what kind of cheese to get, what kind of. I just loved writing that article. And then there's an article that I wrote about like French hot chocolate. That's like going crazy. And I'm like, hot chocolate? Like, I guess it's the time of year right now, but yeah, there's so many places to go. So when you say what's next, I just kind of light up at all the ideas. I really like the data and I think that will be the key to what's next. Understanding that will kind of lead me to, all right, you need to do this next.
Well, and it'll lead you to, which blog posts are the most important, like where to spend your energy, in terms of like what content to create next.
So that
Yeah,
is part of the motivation. Like I think money is motivating for sure. So if that turns out to be something great, then cool. Yeah, we'll check in a little bit and I'll let you know in a few months how it's going. And I don't even think it's been a month since I've been live, but I think it's doing pretty well.
I think it's fantastic. I'm so proud of you, and I really appreciate you reaching out.
Thanks for your support.
I sent a let's chat to my email list, and you right away booked a call. So I was super excited, even though still a little embarrassed that you had been on my email list. 2020. So if anything, if you are listening to this, just keep going, keep doing the thing, keep putting things in motion, I think is a huge takeaway. So Kate, I'm so happy to have you as my second guest on Get Over Your Shit. And I'm just so thrilled that we have been able to make that connection. And I hope to someday visit Versailles with your guide.
Yes,
So I
yes, you'd
appreciate
be
it.
very welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Get Over Your Shit. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe, share this episode with a fellow overthinker, and leave a review. Your feedback helps the podcast grow and reach more people who need to hear this message. Until next time, remember, progress over perfection. You've got this.